Goldman Sachs is launching a $500 million program. Half of it will be going to charity, half of it to help provide financing for small businesses, and it's over a 5-year time frame. We're going to be talking about the Goldman move with two men on the front line, Senator John Thune and David Wei, CEO of Alibaba.com, the largest business-to-business website in the world. So let's talk about whether the Goldman announcement is enough to save its reputation and save it from more regulation first. That obviously is a big question here. Senator Thune, thank you so much for being with us, and we appreciate it. You know, the Goldman obviously is in the headlines constantly. The headline today in the Financial Times, I want to pull that one up, of course, said they apologized for the crisis, pledged the $500 million, but the 5-year donation is only 2.3% of this year's bonus pool. Is this move enough for you in Washington to think Goldman Sachs is doing the right thing right now?
Well, it's a good start, Aaron, but, you know, they're going to be under the gun like a lot of these big companies are. There's a financial services regulation bill that's around the corner, and I think any of these gestures are helpful, but obviously there's probably another shoe to drop around here. There are a lot of people who want to see some additional steps taken, and obviously I'm working on a bill here in the Senate that would sunset the TARP program, which we think would be a really important step forward in terms of signaling to the American taxpayers that we're serious about getting them out of the business of owning private companies. I think that convolutes and confuses a lot of these issues. But anytime you get Washington and Wall Street and business mixed up, I think it leads to all kinds of problems. And obviously right now what we're trying to do is separate some of those and get the federal government out of the ownership of private companies and get the money back to the taxpayers, or at least paying down the federal debt, which is a really important priority right now.
Yes, and I know obviously you've been rather critical of Timothy Geithner in particular and his management of the TARP, which is something you would like to change. In the case of Goldman, they repaid their TARP money, and people have been talking about the return rate of somewhere north of 20% for taxpayers on that. It appears Goldman thinks that's enough. They paid everybody back, now get out of our business. Is that a fair thing for them to feel, or no?
Well, I think because there was so much taxpayer investment involved with Goldman and with some of these other companies, there's a sense, I think, among taxpayers that there's a big investment there and a big stake in this. I think it helps when these companies pay it back, and obviously when they pay it back, we want to make sure that it doesn't get recycled and reused and respent for other purposes, probably lots of other companies out there that the administration may decide they want to help. And my concern all along is that this TARP fund becomes a political slush fund that could be used for all kinds of ancillary purposes. But I think the fact that companies are paying back is obviously a good first step, and I hope that more companies will, and I hope when they do that these funds won't be recycled and reused, but will be applied to paying down the federal debt, which really ought to be our biggest priority right now. I think that looming debt is a real concern to the American people, and it's certainly a big concern, I think, for our economy.
So what would you do with the $210 billion left with the TARP? If Timothy Geithner is not in charge of divvying it out, as you would like to see happen, you would take the $210 and do what? Just immediately put it to debt reduction?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that right now there's a temptation anytime there's loose change lying around Washington to deploy it and to put it to use. And people have lots of things they'd like to spend money on around here, and that's not what this program was designed for. It served its purpose. It's time to end it. Let's sunset TARP and take any remaining unspent funds, apply them to debt reduction, and any funds that are paid back into the program to debt reduction as well. I think that will serve the economy well. I think it certainly will serve the taxpayers well.
But bottom line, more regulation is coming for the likes of Goldman Sachs.
Well, I think that, inevitably this environment we're in right now, and what you're going to see, I think, is the Democrats who are in charge in Washington are going to push the pendulum way back in the other direction. We ought to be able to try and strike a balance here, and there are certainly things that we need to do to try and constrain the systemic risk that afflicts the financial system in this country. But a lot of things that we're seeing in some of these bills go way beyond that. And even small-town bankers in my state of South Dakota are really concerned about some of the provisions that are included in the financial re-reg bill that's coming before the Senate.
All right, Senator Thune, thank you very much. Appreciate your taking the time.
You bet.